Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Open Book. I am Billy Price, co-founder of BILLY Footwear. And I got to say, our story, our brand, it's a fun story to tell. I got to be honest. And it's been part of the reason it's been so fun to tell is because of the growth trajectory that we're on. So as we've been able to reach more customers, we've also been able to reach more retail partners, but we've also been able to grow our actual team itself. So the more traffic we have, the more value we add, the more we have to reach out, and the more people we need behind the scenes helping make that happen. So joining us today, we have Mr. Keith Keranen. He is the senior account manager on more of the B2B side, so working with the retail partners. So welcome, Keith.
Thanks, Billy. I appreciate you having me today.
So Keith, you and I have known each other for a while now, and but I won't steal your thunder. I'll let you go into it. But I think a great place to start, because we can talk about a lot of things, and there's a lot of things we can cover. But I think the great place to start would be what drew you to the brand.
Well, so much. You mentioned knowing you for a long time. I went to high school with both you and your co-founder, Darren Donaldson, as you know. But you and I have kept in touch. Darren and I separately have kept in touch. So I was aware of what you guys were doing. I was in the process of starting a business myself, a separate business in 2015, while you and Darren were getting these things going. And so, gosh, I would stop by Darren's office and we'd talk out, and he'd be showing me these prototypes, and it was brand new, and it was an exciting time. So for me, it's something where I was doing my own thing, but was always so aware of what BILLY Footwear was doing and becoming, and have always had an eye on it, not necessarily on a day-to-day basis, but certainly from a big picture afar, look at it. So it's been, gosh, just to we won't jump too far ahead, but to see where it's gone from Darren's closet of an office at that time to where we're sitting today is remarkable.
Yeah. I wanted to circle back on that office because it really was a closet. I mean, it was maybe like an 8x10 kind of thing, that big quotation marks office. But yeah, that was BILLY Footwear Central at one point, one chapter in our lives, and now we have, fairly large warehouse, and we're busting at the seams. So
well, and it's funny, it's starting to feel small here. Only because we keep growing. So,
and part of that growth, as I touched on, is really like being able to reach out and make these amazing relationships with both customers, but also a lot of brand retail stores. So you came on the team as a sales rep to be able to reach out to those stores. And I mean, I don't really know where to start. There's so many places we can start, but I mean, maybe talk about some of the conversations and relationships you've already built.
Sure. We could start with how I ended up here if you'd like. Because I mean, the reality is way back in December of 2020, I stopped by the office to have lunch with Darren, catch up with you a little bit, see what you guys were up to, and gosh, as we just touched on, the difference between that closet and the warehouse that we're running today, and conference rooms and offices and people running all over the place. And as we got into, and he's really showing me current designs and kind of things that you guys are working on, it was like, oh my gosh, I need to be a part of this. And that coincided with, gosh, a huge problem you guys were having at that time, which was a monster holiday rush where I think sales went very well from all the way from the Black Friday sale through into the holiday season with the launch of our WDR, which has just been can you believe that was only 10 months ago? Because it has been a smash hit. So anyway, we can get into that a little bit, but I saw what you guys had become, and it was like, well, there's a spot on our sales team in a couple months. I got in the conversation with Darren. It's like, well, let's just get in there and get through this holiday push. And I came on quickly and started shipping shoes and working in the warehouse and just helping out where it needed to be done. And with the thought that, sure, it's going to evolve into a sales role. And that's where we've gone. And so To get back to your question, since I now have answered a question you didn't ask.
Well, so before we get into that, though, I think it is important to touch on that when you were working in the warehouse. I think I absolutely love it when people start working on either customer service or in the warehouse, because you really get a sense of what, like, really the pulse, like the beat of the brand. I mean, like, because the person on the line, on the fulfillment team, they are the last person to touch that shoe before it goes out the door, before it really delivers to potentially create this transformational experience. So, yeah, being on the line, the fulfillment line, but also being on the customer service to be able to add value to everyone that reaches out. I think that's a fantastic start. And it probably helped you as well, like moving into the sales role.
1,000%. And knew it going in. It's I want to see everything that's going on around within the company before I actually jump in. And you're talking about a product that is changing lives legitimately, which is, it's funny to say that about a shoe, but it's true. So to see all aspects of the company before you jump in and talk about the company every day was invaluable. And so it was a good way to transition into a sales role, and really think that all of our salespeople should do that coming in always. So it's just part of the program.
Well, now I know that you've gone to Nashville
Yes.
as part of there was a sales event out there, and I want to believe there was one in Atlanta as well.
Yes.
And I know you went there. I know you had a booth, and I also know that it was a remarkable experience. So can you share?
So Nashville was an event called Prime Fair East, and that is, so orthodontists, I was trouble saying orthodontists and prostheticists have ongoing education hours that they have to complete every year. So Prime Fair East is they have speakers and they get those credit hours, and then on breaks and lunch and pre and after the show each day, they've just got an event center where you set up booths and talk about your product. So you'll see lots of braces and AFOs and companies that are selling parts for any part of their business. So we went out there in June, Bo Foster and I, and we set up our booth. It was the first time we'd ever done a clinic show, and it was remarkable. It really was. I was blown away at a couple points in the show. Like, we're standing at this 6-foot booth, and we've got 3 people deep around us. And I glance at around the room, and there's people just kind of scattered. And it's like, wow, we're a shoe company and just attracting so much attention. Like my patients use these all the time. They've been, getting these on and off of kids that wear braces. It's just a life changer. And we talk about it all the time. And whether you're wearing a brace or not, if you've got kids, I've got a 2-year-old, you've got a 2-year-old, I've got a 1-year-old that just last week broke into her first pair of 5. Toddler 5 is the smallest pair we make, and she's just into it. And so I've got both kids, and just the getting out the door as quickly as possible applies across the line. But for these kids, it's particularly to have the independence to be able to put the shoes on themselves. It's so important to them. And these clinicians see it every day. They wanted to talk to us. They're opening wholesale accounts and offering them in their clinics when it makes sense. I think that we've talked about it before, but clinics kind of fall into a couple different categories, or maybe 3 different categories. You've got clinics that have the room and the expertise, and they want to fit a brace and then fit our shoes right with that brace, and kids walk out the door when they get their new brace. You've got those where, in a world where storage isn't it's a luxury, sometimes don't have the room to stock shoes. So they're just ordering one-offs. If they see a patient, they fit the shoe and they order through our business to business site. We send out shoes to them, and they eventually send them home with their patient. And then the third is, hey, I'm a clinician. I don't want to be in the shoe business. And this is kind of the fun one that kind of it really came about organically. Was I was in a conversation and with this clinician, and he's like, I love your shoes, and I'm sending my kids to Nordstrom to get them. And I was like, well, Nordstrom, that's amazing, and they've been such a great retail partner for us, but they don't offer the wide version of our shoe. So what are you doing for the kids that wear bulkier braces? And he's like, well, I just sent them to Nordstrom. And it's like, well, have you thought about carrying them in your shop? And he's like, I just don't have the room. I don't have the patience to work with trying shoes on, blah, blah, blah. And we went forth and forth. And so finally got to the point was, do you know any good shoe stores in the area? And lo and behold, we connected with this was in Oakland, a nice little shoe shop that's down the street from his office. They ended up talking. He sends her business all day long. Retailers have been, we all know what's happened with retail over the last through the pandemic. What a great way to connect two businesses and spur extra business in a time where these retailer stores, that's how we keep them around.
Yeah.
And so it's been so cool. So anyway, the clinics kind of fall into those three categories, and it's been really fun to see that aspect of our business really just shoot. And the advent of the WDR, the release of the WDR last November has been so important to that. We're coming out with the extra wide and medium width, the MDR and XDR, as we're calling them, this fall, and that's really exciting. So the few that have braces that aren't big enough to fit the WDR, the shoe's not big enough, we're going to be able to accommodate a lot more people. So yeah. I'm excited about it all.
Well, in addition to that, another request, I mean, just staying on the WDR side, we get a request for low tops in that same type of silhouette, which will be coming next spring, which I know people are really jazzed about too.
So exciting. Yeah. And a short wrap, if you've got kids that are experiencing toe drag, or, the gait is, anytime you're dragging a zipper across concrete, it's going to affect it. And so the amazing part about what you guys have done, and what I've been so impressed with from you and Darren have a great way of listening to what the consumers want and incorporating it into design. Now, it's not always as fast as I think we would all like it, but it's and that's just because the shoe development process is a long one. But it's to see the short wrap. So we're calling a short wrap is the zipper comes just below the laces rather than all the way around the toe, and that is going to, I think, really help. I think it's going to help a lot from that standpoint, and that's just a matter of listening to the problems and coming up with a solution.
Yeah. Solution. Wow,
solution. I love that. Yeah, I came up with that.
You better put a TM on that. That's brilliant.
That's right. It's all that.
So I want to go back just a little bit, because you're talking about being in Nashville and being at these events, and clinicians are coming by, and but then also just that conversation when you're working with clinicians, and it opens up a conversation with other like retail partners, like brick and mortar stores, like in that same community. It was so important for us as a brand early on to be able to not be pigeonholed as an adaptive brand. I mean, yes, it has the functionality, but the power is really the universal side of it, to be able to be on the shelves of a major retail partner, and then also be able to have the functionality of someone like really embraces it. So the example that you just gave with working with clinicians and also adding value to a retail partner store, which they may think like, well, I don't carry like quote medical shoes. Like, well, first off, it's not a medical shoe, but your illustration, like with kids and whatnot, I mean, anybody and everybody are wearing the shoes. So it just, I don't know, it's just this beautiful image in my mind of inclusion just across the board.
100%. It is. It's funny because it works the opposite way too. I talk to retailers all across the country, and sometimes they're like, "Well, we only want the wide version of your shoe," and because we want to be able to, and it's when we've gone with a medium width to complement, especially if we do a couple options in boy, a couple options in girl, and wide width, and they're seeing it across the board. They're seeing it's funny. I have not to date signed on a retailer, and we should talk about our retail finder on BILLYFootwear.com is where you can find a retailer. But more and more come on, and their selection keeps going up. They're ordering more, and I think that the positive feedback that I get on a day-to-day basis it's so exciting to just see. I think part of what you guys don't talk about a lot, but the idea of starting a shoe business in a world dominated by however not the 7 brands that are out there, that's a daunting task. And to come up with a design and an idea that none of these guys that with their millions of dollars of resources that are pouring into research and development, they didn't come up with this. You guys came up with this solution. And so to go up against us and build this business is just it's so impressive and it's so exciting, and I think people appreciate the story, and I think people appreciate the real life solution the shoe provided for yourself, and then consequently, as we know, the brace community finding Billy Footwear, which is always amusing to me, is why didn't you actually tell that story? Please, can you please tell that story? Why didn't you build it wide enough for braces?
Oh, right.
I love that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the inspiration was my own challenge. I mean, being a wheelchair user, I couldn't put my shoes on. So the only solution that really presented itself was for us to come up with our own solution. So that was really the inspiration behind the brand. And the first person I shouldn't say first person, but as we started to merge into the market, we would get the request or get the question, do these work with AFOs? And I had to go to Google to search what an AFO was. I didn't know what that was. And after looking at the image, like, well, yeah, you bet. I mean, having that rigid plastic, I mean, it's really challenging to shove your foot into a shoe. And it's really been a word of mouth, like having one success story after the other. And then we're now in a bunch of stores. And Keith, I mean, you talked about the store finder. Let's pivot here and head to that.
Yes, please.
Okay. So let me share my screen right here. So let me start this off, and then Keith, you can fill in the blank. So on our site, billyfootwear.com, there's a place it says Store Locator. And on that tab, you can look at it, and all these little dots are places where we have coverage. So you can see it's all over the planet, which is amazing. So these are the store locations. But Keith, I'll give it to you to talk about how someone can sign up to be a retailer.
Absolutely. A few different ways. Sales at billyfootwear.com. Email address always works. We also have a handy dandy form on billyfootwear.com. If you go to contact us, there's a click here to get started. And that just asks some basic questions about who you are, what your business is, where you're located. That comes directly to the sales team. We reach out usually next business day, within a business day or two. Depends on if we're traveling, that kind of thing. But really quickly, we love to have conversations, see what your website, see what you're up to, and talk out what works for your business. And really easy to get started. I think that we're a company that we're excited to be working with independent retailers, all retailers, but in a world where I think a lot of the bigger companies are pulling back from that, we're really excited to be working in that world. And I still love the idea of the sit and fit stores that are mom and pop businesses that just doing right by their customers. I love working with those companies. And so yeah, really easy to get started. Fill out a form, have a conversation, and we see what makes sense.
Awesome. Yeah. So everyone, just to recap that, sales at billyfootwear.com. You'll definitely reach the sales team. On our website, as I showed, let me just pull this up once more. Underneath the contact page, like in the banner up here under help, contact us, and then pulls up this contact form, which brings up where that wholesale account is right here, clicking here. And just like that, you can become a reseller, and then we'll put you on the map, which is this beautiful thing, and we'll drive traffic your way.
Yeah, and that's perfect for retailers or clinicians. There are clinics that would be interested as well. And even if you're a clinic that may not want to be in the shoe business and you know a great store in the area, send them our way. Like, we'd love to have that conversation, and especially if you're willing to, if you trust them with your patients, we'd love to know who they are and reach out to them proactively.
Yeah. Well, Keith, this was awesome, man. I really appreciate your time. I really appreciate everything that you do. I'm glad that you came knocking on our door in December, because it's the amount of growth we've had just from December till now, and the new silhouettes coming out. I mean, just like the planning for the future. I mean, it just looks so incredibly bright, and I'm just absolutely delighted about the value we can bring to the customer. So
I love it.
Before I sign us off here, I want to give you the mic one more time just to share. I know we covered a lot of things, but I just want to give you the mic one more time.
Yeah, I think it's just exciting to work for a company that is pushing things forward all the time. I think our rain boots and winter boots, and I love the toddlers, the toddler jogglers. I love those. My 1-year-old just fit into her first pair, which we're excited about, and just excited to keep helping people and moving forward.
Well, you're doing a bang up job, my friend. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, Billy.
All right, everyone. This is another episode of Open Book. We will have another one next week. So until then, take care.